Hey everybody, Joanne Rogers here, Design with Jo. I've been designing with you in mind since 1999. I'm a Stampin' Up! Demonstrator in Central Alberta, Canada, and today I'm welcoming you to my studio, and we have a Facebook Live. So while we wait for a few folks to jump on, I'll tell you a little bit more about what I have. This is the second week of a feature week that I'm doing now, and so last week we did the first frost bundle, and you may remember that we did the bundle and we made a really quick card. So I just want to make sure that I'm up here and that I am working away, so hold on just a sec. Make sure I'm in the right spot, because if I'm not in the right spot, I'm going to, there we go. Perfect. So if you're on, maybe just leave a comment. Let me know where you're viewing this from. That would be great. Hi, Deborah. Glad to have you here. Thanks for joining in. So just to tell you a little bit more about that, if you didn't catch last week's Facebook Live, so I'm doing features. So it's going to be a product of the week every week, and it could be a stamp set and framelits or bundle like it was last week. It could be different products like embossing powders, which is what it is. Hi, Marilyn. Thanks for joining in from Calgary. Perfect. It could be color. It could be paper, just about anything. So I will be doing that every week. I will have a steal of a deal associated with that product, and all of my themes, my blog posts, the Facebook Live are all going to be centered on that product. I'll do a Facebook Live on Wednesdays, except for next week, and I'll mention that in a bit. And I have a tip on Friday called the Friday Flash, and so join in the group, because I have a Facebook group. I've changed the name. So last week you may remember I was calling it the Design with Jo VIPers, and I decided that probably was not the best name. And so my friend Leslie came up with a great name, and so you probably noticed I changed it to Design with Jo VIPeeps. So join in the group. We have some conversation happening there already. I'd love to see more people posting pictures of what they're creating, the things that they're having fun with in their craft room and at their craft table. So feel free to do that. And hi, Anne. And make sure that you join in, share some comments, and really just have a fun time. So that's what is happening with me. And so before we get on to the next thing, I think probably last week I talked about giving away some cards. So this was the card we made. If you were there, I know that's backwards for you, so sorry about that, but this was the card that we made, and it was a great card because it only uses really one full sheet of cardstock. So take a look at that Facebook Live, and I did also put it up on YouTube last Thursday. So I had 3 cards, and I asked you to make a comment or tell me which was the favorite color combination, and if you did, I was going to mail out those cards to you. So I have everybody's name here in my little draw box, and the winner is Anita Towns. So Anita's actually close to me. She's in just outside of Sundre in Eagle Hills. So congratulations, Anita. We've got these cards for you, and Anita actually is on my team. So I will get those to her for our next team meeting, which is on November 24th. So thanks very much. So for this week, I have another item that I'm going to give away, and I would like if you could share. So if you share this video with your friends and maybe family, I don't know if they're interested in this type of thing, I'll put your name in the draw and I can send that out as well. Okay, so I'm going to turn you down now, and I'm going to talk about what the product of the week is, what the steal of the deal is, and we'll get to what we're making. So let me just turn you around. You're going to look at my cabinets for a little bit, and let's see, is that pretty good? Have I got you centered? Yeah, it looks pretty good. Okay, so I've got embossing powders here, which is the product of the week. And so I think sometimes we take these for granted. We usually, if you remember when you first started stamping and you either went to a Stampin' Up! Show or you were in a store, and yeah, stamping was okay, color was okay, but as soon as somebody took this funny little pieces of plastic and they attached it to ink and then they heated it up with a heat tool, wow, that pretty much like blew your socks off, right? So we're going to do that today, and sometimes I think we we forget about these things sitting in our closet. And if we do forget about them, we sometimes think that they're like a one show wonder, I guess I'm going to call them. So what we're going to do today is, I also want to tell you what the steal of a deal is. So this funny looking little thing, if you don't have one, is an embossing buddy. One of these will last you your entire life. You will never need to replace it. Just a word of caution, if you're wearing black and you drop it on yourself, you will have a nice little sort of white sandy colored mark on your black. I know that because I did that just a few minutes ago. So this is an embossing buddy, and my steal of a deal this week is if you don't have the Stampin' Up! Embossing tool, it's great. And I shared on my blog post on Tuesday exactly why I think this is one of the best tools out there. And so it's got 2 settings. You're not going to burn yourself because there's plastic here. But if you purchase one of these this week up until Sunday, I'll send you one of the embossing buddies for free. And if you don't already have one, you're going to find out exactly why you want one in just a minute. So I'm going to put that aside. And an embossing buddy, what it does, it actually will allow your powder to stick more to your ink rather than everywhere else on the card. So I'm hoping that you're going to be able to see here. So I've got just white embossing powder. There's a little hint about what's coming up. So I'm going to put that as far up as I can. So this one here, I did not use an embossing buddy. So you might be able to see here I've got fuzzy edges, I'm going to call them, and then I've got all kinds of little dots of embossing powder. I'm hoping rather that you can see that. The next one I don't have. I don't have a lot of those spots because I used the buddy. And so I switched it, and I'll show you in just a moment what I did all over top of the cardstock. And I used, especially if you're using a dark paper, the embossing buddy is fantastic. So on Tuesday's blog, I used black with white embossing powder on it for my words. And I did use the embossing buddy. And you're still going to need to use your fine little tipped brush, but it will get the bulk of it away. So that's just to show you what it can do. So first thing I'm going to do is I like my embossing colors. I've got gold, silver, copper, white, black, and clear. Those are all the colors that Stampin' Up! Has. But sometimes it's not quite the right color. So what we're going to do today is we're going to mix some colors. So I've got here gold and silver, and I'm going to make a different color, okay, because I want something to go with my champagne foil. So to do that, I'm just going to put gold, and this is just an empty embossing jar, so don't throw them out, and I'm going to put silver right in there with it. And I put a little bit more silver than gold, and then try and get the right lids on, I guess. And if you don't, no big deal either. Okay, and then I'm going to close it up, and I'm going to give it a really good shake. So mix it around, shake it, okay, until it's all mixed together. And now we're going to start our project. So we're using Winter Woods. So if you haven't seen this stamp set, and if you've liked it in the catalog and thought, oh, well, it's probably not one that I really need, I love this set. And so I have 2 projects this week on my blog, this one and a really quick and easy one on Sunday night too. And we're going to use the framelits, but we're not using a framelit this time. We are just going to use this, I'm going to call it a berry. I'm not exactly sure what it is, maybe a berry or an acornish kind of thing. So that's all we're going to use out of the set of framelits. And in the Winter Woods, we're going to use these 5 trees here. And the Thinking of You this season. So I do really enjoy this set. My favorite, I think, are these 3 right here, as well as the words. So I'm just going to pull those aside. And let me pull in the Stamparatus. So we are going to be making that card. So I gave you that sort of preamble here, and I'm using the Stamparatus so that I can create like a little forest of trees. So I've got a piece of Whisper White, and my Whisper White piece is 3 3/8 by 4 5/8, and I will put all of the measurements for the card up on the Facebook Live when I post it, so you don't have to worry about writing them down. So I've got my small grid sheets, which are new and great. They fit right into the Stamparatus. And I've got my sheet of white, and I've got just one magnet on the top, and only one right at the very top because this is a pretty big stamp. So I'm going to take my Versamark and I'm just going to ink up my trees, stamp it down. And one of the great things about the Stamparatus is the hinges. So I'm going to lift that straight up, and it's best to lift it from 90-degree perpendicular. And I'm going to move it down, not one, but 2 hinges. And then I'm going to ink it up again and stamp it. So now I've got my trees over here, which I know you can't see. And here are my other ones. Oh, and look at that. You know what? I knew I was going to do that. Hold on just a second, because I don't want any of those embossing powders flitting all over the place. So I'm going to turn that over. And now I'm going to use my embossing buddy. I said to myself, make sure you don't do that. And look, I did. Oh well. Okay, so now I can go backwards. So I'm going to stamp here, lift it up again, 90, and I'm going to go right over into the edge. Ink it up again. I'm using my Versamark, which is a sticky ink, and you can press it down. And now you're going to lift it up, and we're done with this guy, so I'm going to put him off to the side. I'm also going to close up my Versamark so I don't stick my hand in it. And now I'm going to use that embossing powder that I created. To find out which one it is, it's this guy right here. So you use it just like you do any other embossing powder. Sprinkle all over everywhere. I'm not sure if I made enough, but we can always do it a second time. So when I'm doing this, I tend to run it a little bit off to the side. So I see I'm missing some there. So I'm going to put it back into my jar. This is just an 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper folded in half. Usually I have plastic containers that I keep my embossing powder in, but when I'm just making small amounts, I do it just in a little jar. Plus it saves a little bit on space. So I always turn mine over and I give it a really good flick with my finger. That might have been a little too much of a flick, but I do still have some embossing powder pieces here. So I'm just going to take a couple seconds and get rid of those. And it's almost like, it's really interesting, it's almost like they stuck to the back of the paper where that other Versamark image was when I turned it over. So that's interesting. Now if you do have a few stray pieces, you can always cover them up with a jewel or something like that. So I'm going to take my, what is this? Heat tool, and I'm going to heat it up, and I'm going to do it on number 2 because that's a higher setting. Now I'll get started really quickly. So when you're embossing, you want to hold your heat tool in one place. And when you see it change, and you'll see it turn shiny, I'll see if I can get an angle here. When you see it turn shiny, then you immediately move on. So it's taking a minute to warm up. There we go. Okay, so then you immediately move on rather than waving it all around like this. Move on. When that area is done, move over. Okay, so I'm going to finish that because by the magic of television, I already have one done. So I want to put my embossing powder back in because we're done with that. Clean as you go. Okay, put those guys aside. We're done with those. We're also done with the heat tool, so I'm going to put that away. So here's my piece, and now I'm going to do my little piece of the berries. Okay, so I've got my berries, and this is really cool because these berries have an embossed line right in the middle of them. So I'm using the champagne sheets, and I'm just going to do one sheet of this. So I'm going to pull in my Big Shot. I just want to show you this. So pull in my Big Shot, put that down, and I'm just going to cut it out. So just like you do a normal framelit, just going to cut that out back over here. But now this is where it's different. So I have it cut out. Now I'm going to turn it over. Just going to take out my thin die adapter here. I'm going to turn it over, and I'm going to emboss that. So there are embossing mats new in the catalog, and this is the heavy, there's a heavy gray and a lighter blue, and this goes right over top. So I've been cutting it out first, and then there's a pretty rigid piece of white plastic that goes over top, and then you just run that through your Big Shot. And after you run it through your Big Shot, you pull out your berries and your pokey tool or your paper piercer, which I lost last week, which was on the floor, of course. And now I'm going to just poke out these little holes here. There's a few little holes. I'm going to start at the bottom and see if I can't get it, and I am going to be able to get it, and pull it out. And it's in there pretty good. So just gently, try not to pull the whole thing out at once. But what you have is you have this beautiful piece of foil now that has embossed ridges for the veins of the berries. So I'm going to use that, and we're going to do some words. If I can just find my stuff here. Okay, so we're using Night of Navy. We're going for a pretty dramatic card. We're going with our white, our champagne, and navy, which I love as color choices. So I'm just inking up the word Thinking of You this season. And I think I've not put that over far enough because I'm going to cut it out. Oh, I did. Perfect. So I'm going to cut it out. I'm going to take off my embossing. I'm going to throw my thin die adapter back in. And I'm going to cut out. I'm using the stitched the stitch shapes. Put that on. I realize that's off the screen. Sorry about that. I think probably you do know. That one is fairly straightforward. And here we go. So one of the things with using the stitch shapes, you'll notice that they are harder to punch out this way because all those little stitchings catch in the paper. So what I do is take mine out, and then I use thick white as well. I use thick white for this. So that's not quite straight, so I'm going to have to fix that just a little bit when I'm putting my card together. But that, we're done with that. So what we have now is we have our piece here. We have this, and I did another white and I did a navy one as well. So we're going to work with those as well. So I'm going to pull in, I'm going to do one more little thing, and I'm hoping that I can get this working on the camera because it's about a 70-30 chance that it works for me. So I'm going to create one of these. And so I have 1/4 inch sheer white ribbon, and what I've done is I've just released the one string so that I could have this sort of fanish, very soft thing. So if this one doesn't work, I'm going to use that one. But what you want to do is you want to see if you can get an end here. So if there's a little tiny end, you're going to try and get that end and pull on it. Okay, and I have one, and what it's going to do is it's going to unravel the ribbon. So you're just going to pull. Oh, this one might be one that's not going to work. I'm going to try and play with that a little bit more, see if I can get it going. It really does work. And when you get it going, it's like, wow, that was easy. It's just that when you're trying to show somebody, of course, it never wants to work. I'm going to try for the other end, see if I can get better. Oh, there we go. Okay, so we've got this one. Oh, it wants to tie again. So what you want to do is you just want to pull on that end. It's not going to work. I can just tell. Oh, here we go. Pull on that end, and you can see all it's doing is releasing those little fibers, which are really quite fun. And then you're just going to cut off this little piece here, and that's going to go in the garbage. Okay, so here we have a little fluffy sort of piece. So we're going to work. I've got some other pieces I'm going to pull in. I have a piece of navy that is 3 1/4 by 4 1/2. I have a piece of the champagne foil, which I love. It's not silver, although in some lights it looks silver, but it's not. And we're going to put that on there. It's got just that hint of gold to it, so I'm going to glue those down together. Oh, look, I have a rampant little rhinestone. You probably have those too. Do you ever end up stepping on something or pearl in your place too? So this will fit on here with just a little bit of a border. And we're going to put down our white piece as well with our trees on it. Okay, and these are our champagne trees. Oh, look at that. I made it exactly the same size. Okay, we're just going to have one border on this one. Now what we're going to do is we're going to put just a little piece of snail, and I want to have my ribbon poke off to the right. Okay, I'm not gluing it down over here. I'm just going to glue it there. I'm going to take my dimensionals and I'm going to put my words on. But first I'm going to attach these guys. In fact, I should have done that first, but we're going to work around the dimensionals now. So I'm going to put my champagne one off to the right. I'm going to put my white one, I think maybe I'll put my white one on this side. And you can always cut these ones too. So a good place to cut, I've noticed, is to cut right here, and then you can get 2 out of 1, especially when you're putting it in from behind. But I'm just going to use it like this. So I never like to put things exactly the same, unless I'm going for a shadow look. So I'm going to put it on here, up there, because that's where I have glue right now. And I'm going to rip this little guy off, because I don't need him. I'm not going to see him, and he was interfering with the dimensional. Now I'm going to put a couple more dimensionals on there just to go over top of my little berries. So when you get to the end of a sheet of dimensional, make sure you're using them all. Just snip a couple. And I usually go around and I snip all of them at the same time, just so that I don't have to waste that time. I think of it as wasting time, but it's not, to when I'm in the middle of card making. So again, the worst part here is to get these little guys off. I had a friend tell me, and I'm sure you've seen this tip as well, if you can't get them off, put your fingernail in the middle and it actually releases the paper from one side. Go. So we're going to put that guy down over top here. And normally I would never have put that down. That would have been my last thing, but I seem to be doing things a little backwards today. So this is a piece of thick Whisper White, and we are going to put that down. And so we don't have a lot of navy on here. So I'm thinking that actually that's sort of a cool look too. Just very, very plain, elegant, I guess. And so I'm going to put my snail is not coming out, so I'm going to, and that's probably because I have an embellishment on there already. This is why I put my embellishments on as one of the final things. So I'm going to center that on my card as much as possible. And the very last thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take some rhinestones, and because this is champagne and these are silver, I want to make them a little bit more champagne-y. So I'm taking my ivory Stamp and Blend, turn that, maybe you can read it better, and I'm going to use the bullet tip as opposed to the brush tip, because when you're coloring, you may tend to use a little bit more pressure than you might normally. And if you use too much pressure on that brush tip, you could bend it and you could hurt the tip of your brush, of your blend. So I've got 4 there. Well, I can't have 4. I have to have 3 or 5 or 7. You always want to have uneven numbers. Okay, so I'm going to go in now, pull this here. And it's very, very faint, that color. In fact, I have to sort of look at which ones I did. Now, if you have any stray embossing pieces, this is where you want to cover them up. And I think maybe I'll put one way down here, and I have one more up there. Okay, so there's the card. A little bit different than the card I'm going to show you right now. So this guy here is interesting because he moves around. So he's like an interactive piece on there. So this is the copper. Now I want to show you some different cards that I made. And first of all, let me show you here. So this is gold embossing powder by itself. So everybody's pretty familiar with that. This is copper embossing powder by itself. I'm going to move it around so hopefully you can see the sheen. This is gold and copper mixed together. So I don't know if you can see that it has definitely lots of copper in there, but it's a little bit shinier than what the gold is, I think. So if you can see the gold, there's the gold, and there's the gold copper. And then here's the copper silver mix, which is really quite pretty too. The silver is taking over, which is perfect for me because silver I really like anyway. So, okay, so there's the card we just made. Here's a different version of the same card. So this we're using champagne on here. We've got this little feathery guy, and I've got champagne and navy here. This guy is a silver. So this is silver, straight silver embossing powder, and I use the new, and I've lost the name of it now. It's the silver in the catalog. Oh, it's on the tip of my tongue, but I can't think of it. And then I used my Night of Navy Stampin' Blend to color my rhinestones. Then this guy here, I use just white embossing powder. So I've got my white embossing powder, white and navy, and I've got a piece of our plaid navy gingham ribbon. And also back here, I've got the subtle embossing folder. I don't know if you can see that in there or not. And then I went for a different color. So then I went for balmy blue, and this is silver with, no, I'm sorry, it's not. This is champagne again with the balmy blue. So I've got a lot of different varieties there. So again, you can leave me a comment with which one you like the best. Here's the one we just did. So actually it's quite pretty, just the white with a little bit of silver on it too. I may need to go in and put just a little bit of glue under there so it that piece doesn't move. So what I've got, so if you share the video today, thanks very much for doing that. And if you share, I've got 3 different colors mixed up that I will send in the mail to you. I've got copper silver, I've got silver gold, which is what we use today to create the champagne or the platinum, and I also have copper gold. So send me a share, leave me a comment, and I will pick for these for the next Facebook Live. So our next Facebook Live is going to be Monday night. Actually, let me move you back here. So here we are. See me. Hi, Kathy and Jennifer. Thanks, Cindy. So next Facebook Live is going to be next Monday night. And the reason why is I'm headed off to the Stampin' Up! Convention on stage, which is in Orlando, and my husband and I are going a week early. So I won't be actually here on Wednesday. So you want to mark your calendars for Monday at 4:30, and I'll have another project for you. And I'm planning to do a Facebook Live when I'm in Orlando as well, because we're going to get the Occasions catalog. So it'll be exciting, and that will be back on the Wednesday. I'm not exactly sure on the time yet though. So that's it for now. Thanks very much for joining in and watching and sharing and commenting, and I hope you enjoyed that project. I will post it here with all the measurements, and it'll be up on my blog tomorrow as well. And then keep an eye out for the Friday Flash and for what the product of the week is going to be next week. Thanks very much. Have a great evening. Bye-bye.